She was arrested for a crime that shocked even the police officers who responded to the scene. She arrived at the prison without saying a word, but within a few weeks she had already transformed everything around her into fear and silence. Inmates avoided crossing her path, officers changed shifts without explanation, and anyone who tried to confront her disappeared from the ward's routine. Rumors grew. Control slipped from the hands of management, and when they finally tried to stop her, something happened in that prison that was never officially recorded. Sit back, put on your headphones, and get ready to discover the brutal story of Lana Grace. Raven Hill Correctional Facility, United States, 2016. On November 7, 2015, the city of Fairbridge, North Carolina looked grayer than usual. The sky was covered, the streets were wet from the previous night's rain, and the wind cut between the houses as if announcing something bad. At 52 Camden Street, Lana Grace woke up before her alarm clock went off. His brother, Marcus, was already up, drinking coffee in silence as he did every day. Mom was in her room, sewing a stack of school uniforms she had picked up to cover the month's rent. Lana went downstairs, picked up an apple, and sat down next to her brother. They didn't talk much, but the two always understood each other in silence. Marcus was 3 years older. He studied in the morning and worked in a workshop in the afternoon. He was the kind of boy who didn't mess with anyone, but everyone knew him. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, nor to face anyone who tried to intimidate her sister. Lana saw him as a shield against the world. That day he left saying he needed to meet someone in the city center. He spoke naturally as if it were something simple, but Lana noticed something different in the tone of his voice. When he closed the door, she stood there looking into the empty kitchen, feeling a strange weight in her chest. The hours passed. The mother wasn't worried at first. He said Marcus must have extended his shift at the shop. At 9 o'clock at night, he still hadn't returned. At 10, the mother called the workshop. They said he didn't show up that day. At 11, they started calling their friends. Nobody knew anything. At 2 in the morning, the police were called. They registered the disappearance, but made it clear that young people disappear frequently, and that he would probably appear the next day. But he didn't show up. On the morning of November 8th, a truck driver passing along the north exit road found the door of an aluminum warehouse ajar. He stopped out of curiosity. When he entered, he saw Marcus' body hanging from electrical wires from the ceiling, with marks of beatings on his back and cuts on his arms. The police were called. The scene was isolated, but in small towns news travels. In less than 3 hours, all of Fairbridge knew that Marcus Grace had been murdered. The coroner indicated that the death occurred around 6 in the afternoon. Cause of death: internal bleeding with multiple traumas. Furthermore, on the neck there was a mark carved with a blade. It was a letter M followed by a cross. The police interpreted it as a signature. The mother collapsed when she received the news. She had to be hospitalized for a nervous breakdown. Lana, however, stood still, not shedding a tear. She spent the first 2 nights sitting in her brother's chair, with his coat over her shoulders, staring at the notebook where he used to write. The police station said they were investigating, but that Marcus had probably gotten involved with the wrong people. They used generic terms such as local conflict, suspicious involvement, and possible debts. Lana's school did not allow her to return the following week, saying it was best to wait for the situation to cool down. Lana started searching through everything. The brothers' room became a private point of investigation. She went through boxes, reviewed receipts, looked at all the contacts saved in notebooks and old cell phones. No one from the school contacted her. No counselor came to the house. The whole city seemed to want to forget what had happened, as if Marcus was to blame for his own destiny. On December 2nd, less than a month after the murder, the police department officially closed the investigation. They filed the case as death due to violent causes with suspected settling of scores. No arrests were made. No complaints were filed. It was at that moment that Lana fell silent once and for all. He spent most days without leaving his room. The mother, still emotionally shaken, tried to start over, but didn't realize what was growing inside her daughter. Lana didn't cry. He didn't complain. But every day he woke up at 5 in the morning, locked himself in Marcus's room and stayed there until nightfall. In January 2016 he found a letter hidden inside a toolbox. It was a badly folded note, written with a pen in rapid handwriting. Marcus said he was being threatened by a couple from the city, owners of a convenience store. The names were there. According to the letter, the couple extorted young people in exchange for protection and involved teenagers in petty theft and debt collection. Marcus said he was going to confront them, and that if something happened, it wasn't an accident. Lana didn't think twice. He wrote down the address, studied the store's opening hours and started planning. For 2 weeks he followed the two discreetly, observing their routine. He studied the moments when they would be alone, the police response time, the presence of cameras and alarms. On January 18, 2016 at 6 in the morning, he left home carrying a blue backpack and a black hoodie. Inside the backpack, just a kitchen knife and his brother's letter. He went to the couple's house and waited outside among the bushes. When they went out into the yard, she went in, locked the door from the inside and waited. At 7:43, neighbors heard screams. At 8:10, the police arrived. They found the couple's bodies on the kitchen floor. The house was ransacked. On the wall, a sentence written in red paint, "I remember everything." Lana was found sitting at a bus stop 3 blocks away, her hands still dirty. He didn't try to escape. I didn't say a word. She just handed her brother's letter to the police officer who approached her. She was taken into custody. The interrogation lasted just 7 minutes. She remained silent. Even the lawyers couldn't get her to talk. On January 22, 2016, the judge responsible for the case decided that, due to the degree of coldness and premeditation, Lana would be sent to the Raven Hill Correctional Unit in the neighboring state. The town of Fairbridge breathed a sigh of relief. Justice had acted. But no one realized that what they had buried was not a case. It was a flame. And it was still lit. Raven Hill Correctional Facility was just over 4 hours from Fairbridge, but it felt like another world. The building, surrounded by high walls and electric fences, was a cold, gray structure with observation towers at 4 ends and cameras installed in every corner. From a distance, it looked like an old industrial complex. Inside, it was a containment system for young people considered uncontrollable. Lana arrived on a cloudy day in the backseat of a police car, with her hands cuffed in her lap and her eyes fixed on the window. During the ride, I didn't say anything. He didn't ask where they were, he didn't ask to go to the bathroom, he didn't show any sign of fear or regret. The 2 agents escorting her exchanged glances more than once. One of them, more experienced, commented that he had already seen boys arrive screaming, begging not to enter. But that girl looked like she was made of stone. Upon passing through the gates, she was greeted by an agent named Ellen, responsible for screening newly arrived inmates. She was a tall woman with firm speech and attentive eyes. He asked direct questions, asked for documents, authorized the removal of belongings. Lana said almost nothing. She signed what they asked, put on her faded orange uniform and was taken to cell C-12, one of the most isolated in the North Wing. The juvenile prison environment was not just hostile, it was unpredictable. The inmates were divided by psychological profile and level of aggressiveness, but the classification was flawed. Many girls had committed serious crimes but did not know how to behave in a group. Others, apparently harmless, commanded the ward with a simple look. It was an ecosystem of survival where every gesture could be interpreted as a threat. On the first day, Lana was observed in silence. The other inmates noticed his rigid posture, his expressionless face and the way he walked without looking to the side. It wasn't common for someone to arrive like this. She showed no anxiety, no panic, no defense. Just presence. In the cafeteria, she sat alone. He ignored the looks, didn't touch the food and kept his eyes fixed on the wall clock for 20 minutes. When he got up, he left the tray untouched and walked to the cell without saying a word. In the first week, he did not respond to calls from the guards. He slept little, waking up before sunrise and taking notes in a small notebook given to him as part of his school kit. Monitors said she appeared to be studying the prison's internal codes. I observed the schedules, the agents' routes, the camera shifts and who spoke to whom. It was as if he was drawing an invisible map of the prison. Within 2 weeks, I already knew the names of the most influential inmates. I knew which of them controlled the bath line, who distributed cigarettes in secret, who delivered messages outside. But the strangest thing was that she didn't try to get closer. On the contrary. He kept his distance, but even so, it started to bother him. At the end of February, a girl named Brooklyn tried to bully her. Brooklyn was known for assaulting newcomers to command respect. When he pushed Lana against the hallway wall, he expected screams, perhaps a physical reaction. But Lana just stood there staring. He didn't blink, he didn't flinch, he didn't respond. He remained still as if he were looking inside her. Brooklyn hesitated, tried to laugh and walked away, but left the confrontation with his hands shaking. That night he asked to change wards. The story spread. Days later, another inmate, named Mela, began reporting that she had nightmares about Lana. He said he would wake up during the night and see her sitting on her own bed, staring at the cell door, motionless, for hours. He said he felt like she knew things that no one told her. In the third week, an employee responsible for cleaning the north corridor was found locked inside a maintenance closet, in a state of panic. She said that someone had entered without her noticing, whispered something in her ear and locked the door from the outside. No cameras showed strange movements at that time. But Agent Ellen, when reviewing the images, noticed that Lana had passed by exactly 2 minutes earlier. The rumors grew. Some inmates began to avoid her. Others, curiously, started to sit closer. Without saying a word, Lana started to have company. It wasn't leadership. It was gravity. The girls orbited around her as if drawn by a force they didn't understand. In March, a new intern arrived. Young, aggressive, impulsive. He tried to mark his territory by challenging the first girl he met. Unfortunately, this girl was one of those who were already close to Lana. The next morning, the new intern was found with bruises on her face and did not want to report it to anyone. He just said he slipped on the stairs. The problem is that there were no stairs in that wing. In the internal report, the unit's management classified Lana's behavior as passive, but dominant. The term used by the prison psychologist was threatening stability. He said she didn't seek conflict but created it just by her presence. No aggression recorded. No direct rule breaking. But the environment changed around her. In the last week of March, police officer Ellen found a note hidden inside one of the storeroom drawers. It was a piece of paper torn from Lana's notebook. There was only one sentence written in fine handwriting. If something happens in here, it won't be an accident. In the cold corridors of the North Wing, the name Lana Grace was no longer just feared. He was avoided. Agents spoke in hushed tones when commenting on his behavior. Inmates avoided looking at her, and when they spoke, it was nervous. It was as if, even without saying a single word, she was present in everything. In early May, rumors emerged that an employee had been recorded attacking inmates. Days later, this employee was found crying alone in the empty cafeteria, with bruises on her face and a slight cut on her arm. He said he fell but did not explain why the cut formed exactly the letter L. The case was hushed up. Management did not comment. The employee was transferred without leaving any record. Lana wasn't in the area, but the next shift, a guard found a torn-out notebook page with a single sentence under her bed. Each share has a price. The unit psychologists began reporting emotional instability in several inmates in the North Wing. Most of them suffered from insomnia, anxiety attacks, and episodes of uncontrollable crying. When asked why, many mentioned Lana. They said she knew too much. That she asked questions that no one outside the cell could know. And when she was silent, it was even worse. On the night of June 8th, the cameras in the North Wing went off the air for 12 minutes. When they returned, one of the inmates had been locked out of her own cell. He said he heard whispers, footsteps, and a voice repeating his name several times. I couldn't say who it was. I just said it was frozen. He cried nonstop, saying he had done something wrong. The same night, he left a letter asking to change prison. The next day, Raven Hill's board of directors met in a secluded administration room. Agent Ellen, the North Wing supervisor, the psychologist in charge, and 2 members of institutional security sat in front of a whiteboard and made a list. 10 direct incidents in 2 months. No concrete proof. No images, no witnesses. But everything was linked to a name. Lana Grace. The supervisor wanted to impose punishment. The psychologist suggested hospitalization in a psychiatric ward. Agent Ellen was silent. I knew none of these options would work. Because Lana didn't break rules. She bent the system. On June 17th, an inmate named Riley came to the infirmary with a shoulder injury. She said she had been attacked. But before entering the treatment room, he dropped a folded paper in the hallway. It was a hand-drawn map with the corridors of the South Wing, patrol times, areas without cameras, and an arrow indicating the emergency exit. The escape plan was ready. Lana's name was nowhere to be found. But everyone knew who the mastermind was. On the 20th, Agent Ellen received a direct order from the administration to isolate Lana, interrogate her, and find out how involved she was. But not in the common protocol. The order was clear. Take the inmate to the deactivated wing of the former maximum security sector, a place known as the Nameless Room. On June 22nd at 4:17 in the morning, the prison alarms sounded. The cells were automatically locked. The emergency lights came on. The system indicated an escape attempt. No doors had been breached. No open cells. But someone had accessed the internal power panels. When the guards arrived at the center, they found a broken padlock and a spare key missing. It was as if everything had been done to attract attention. During the screening, 3 inmates were taken for interrogation. 2 denied knowing any plan. The third, in a state of panic, just said that she was being used. That someone manipulated everything behind the curtains. And that someone was always 3 steps ahead. Lana was called soon after. She was in her cell, lying down as if waiting. He got up calmly. Didn't argue. He didn't hesitate. She was taken away in silence by 2 agents, with her arms restrained by handcuffs and her feet chained. Along the way, other inmates watched through the bars. Some scared. Others with admiration. It was like watching the legend being led to sacrifice. The unnamed room was in the oldest section of the prison. Used decades before as a site of extreme containment, it was now just a dimly lit reminder of a more violent time. It had peeling walls, an uneven concrete floor, and a single spotlight on a metal chair in the center. Lana was placed on her knees, chained at the wrists and ankles. An agent remained behind her. The supervisor stood at the front, with a microphone and a folder with notes. Agent Ellen watched everything behind a one-way mirror. The questions began. What's the plan? Who is involved? Who provided the map? What do you intend to do with this arrest? Lana didn't respond. He remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the floor. With each silence, the tone increased. You think you are untouchable. You know what happens to those who challenge the system. Nothing. Not a whisper. That's when the agent threatened. He knelt beside her. He spoke quietly. He said no one would know what would happen in that room. That the camera was already off. That no one would miss her. That your life was nothing more than a number in the system. Lana slowly looked up. He looked straight at the camera in the corner of the room. And smiled. At this point, the overhead light failed for 2 seconds. The camera stopped transmitting. When he returned, the room was empty. The official report from that night said that Lana was immediately transferred to a federal facility in another state. No name. No subscription. No route. Her cell was sealed. The other inmates were ordered not to comment on her. Agent Ellen submitted her removal request a week later and never showed up again. Some say Lana is still alive, somewhere the system can't control. Others believe she was eliminated in that room. But one thing remains. In the north wing of Raven Hill, every night at the same time, the light in cell C12 flashes 3 times. And whoever is awake at that moment avoids looking there. Because Lana Grace's name is still written on the walls. Not with paint, but scared.